Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Welcome to The Takeout. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is, in the eyes of the Trump administration, a villain. An illegal immigrant accused of being a gang member, terrorist, human trafficker, and wife beater. To those who support Abrego Garcia, he is a victim of government callousness, alarmist rhetoric, and deport first, ask questions later, immigration hysteria. It was hard to assess Abrego Garcia's guilt or innocence while he languished in a maximum security El Salvadoran prison, sent there from Maryland in March, as the Trump administration admitted, by mistake. Now, the Justice Department says he is back in the United States. To those advocating for Abrego Garcia, the persistent request has been this: respect his due process rights, let him answer charges, criminal, immigration, any others, in court. In fact, a federal court ordered the Trump administration weeks ago to do just that. And now, here we are. The Trump Justice Department late this afternoon charged Abrego Garcia with 2 counts of human trafficking, alleging he conspired for years with others to illegally move undocumented immigrants from Latin America into the United States. Some of those trafficked, the indictment alleges, were members of the MS-13 criminal gang, serious charges that will, at long last, be heard in a court of law. Attorney General Pam Bondi spoke about this moments ago.
This is what American justice looks like. Upon completion of his sentence, we anticipate he will be returned to his home country of El Salvador.
We begin now with our Homeland Security correspondent, Nicole Sganga, who, as I've said before, when this happens and people are reporting up to the last minute, they will join me on stage here at the set, walking on with the latest reporting they have. Nicole, it's so good to have you with us. I'm indebted to you because I know you've been working this story since the news broke just about an hour ago. Catch our audience up. As I understand it, there could be a court appearance today for Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
That's right. In Tennessee, a time has not yet been set. But we should point out, Major, that this is a very rare move by the U.S. government, who deported Kilmar Abrego Garcia to that maximum security prison in El Salvador, Secot, and is now bringing him back onto U.S. soil to face criminal charges. What criminal charges? Count 1, conspiracy to transport aliens. Count 2, unlawful transportation of illegal aliens. And those both carry a maximum of 10 years in prison if convicted. Now, Attorney General Pam Bondi has said he will be tried here in the United States by U.S. prosecutors, that if he is convicted, he will serve his sentence here. And then, what do you know? He will be deported back to El Salvador after completing that sentence if he is in fact found guilty.
Convicted. What years are we talking about with the alleged activity?
Yeah, decade-long, 2016 to 2025. And if you read the court documents, which we should point out to viewers that what Attorney General Pam Bondi said in her press conference was different than what we saw in the court documents. Since the takeout is a place of fact, we're going to reference the court documents here. So from in or around 2016 through or in or around 2025, Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia and others, known and unknown to this grand jury in Tennessee, conspired to bring thousands of undocumented aliens coming from countries like Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Ecuador, and elsewhere, ultimately passing through Mexico before crossing into Houston and then coming to the interior of the United States. This happened over the span of over 100 trips. There are also detailed allegations of narcotics and weapons trafficking that was done in conjunction with this alleged human trafficking. The route changed based on the details within the court documents because as part of the smuggling operation, they were trying to conceal their movements to law enforcement. They often took the cell phones of those they were smuggling so that those individuals could not contact anyone else in family, friends. And really, in terms of details, you might say, okay, how do we know any of this happened? A lot of this is being pinned on a 2022 traffic stop. In or around November 30th, state troopers with the Tennessee Highway Patrol stopped Kilmar Abrego Garcia on Interstate 40. They found him in a Suburban that was not his own. The individual who owned that Suburban is now serving time, we should say, was found guilty of other human trafficking charges. And in that vehicle were 9 Hispanic men who had no identification on them. When police asked Abrego Garcia where were they coming from, he said, We were in St. Louis. We were working a construction job. We're going back to Maryland. Investigators found that that vehicle was nowhere near St. Louis, that had in fact been in Houston, Texas, before rolling into Tennessee. He had $1,400 in his pocket, according to prosecutors.
It strikes me as interesting, Nicole, that this operation went undetected in the first Trump administration and the Biden administration.
HSI, who were aware of this stop in 2022, let Abrego Garcia go. And Attorney General Pam Bondi was asked exactly that. What happened between the time in which you deported this man and today? She said that this investigation has been ongoing, that these new details emerged, and that they presented the arrest warrant to President Bukele in order to bring Abrego Garcia back to the United States. Again, a very rare move by the Department of Justice, who had already deported this individual, despite the fact that there was a 2019 court order suggesting that he could face persecution in his home country. And we should point out that for many months, Major, this was a point of a debate, really, within the political arena of should we bring Abrego Garcia back because he is at risk in his home country. Now the Attorney General saying that's a moot point given these new allegations. You
were reporting this into the moment you walked in. Nicole Sganga, thank you so much for walking in and walking us through it. I want to bring in Maryland Democratic Congressman Glenn Ivey, who has been advocating for Abrego Garcia's return to the United States and was denied access to visit him when he traveled to El Salvador in March. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. First question, it's very simple, very basic. What's your reaction?
Well, I certainly wanted him brought back so he could have his due process. I didn't think they needed to indict him to do it. And by the way, there's still 250 plus people in the CCOT prison down there, the Venezuelan group, that need to be brought back as well. But moving forward on this, I mean, I think it's a criminal indictment. We'll have to see how it plays out. I know that Kilmar has outstanding lawyers who can represent him. This will be his first chance to talk to any lawyers on any of these matters. So I'm sure that's going to be a good step in the right direction. I do kind of wonder, though, the Attorney General's answer about when the investigation started was pretty evasive. It looks to me like what they did was they indicted him on these charges to get out from under the problems they were having in the federal court here. They were moving towards criminal contempt charges because they had failed to either do anything to facilitate his return, as the Supreme Court had required. And I think they were trying to not provide documents using theories that, state secrets theories that I don't know that are going to be borne out. But at the end of the day, now we'll have a chance to see how it plays out in court. All this information will be made public through the discovery process sooner or later. And he'll have his initial appearance, as you all were just saying, there in front of a judge. If not today, then as soon thereafter as possible.
Congressman, do you regard these charges, as you have read them, to be serious? And is your advocacy for the concept of due process or for Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the person?
Well, all federal criminal charges are serious. There's no question about that. So, he's going to need good representation because it's a challenging scenario usually when the Department of Justice moves against someone with criminal charges. And yeah, the due process piece, absolutely. I think it's important for Kilmar, as the Supreme Court said, to make sure that he gets his due process in court here in the United States. Now, normally the way this works is you get prosecuted, convicted, and sentenced first, and then you're deported. As you all were pointing out a minute ago, they did exactly the opposite here. They deported him first and then brought him back, which is why I kind of wonder about the politics of it. And also it was odd that there were no local prosecutors, no career prosecutors who were announcing this indictment. It was all Main Justice, the Attorney General, and I think the Deputy Attorney General. Now, we'll see down the road if there are career prosecutors involved, but normally in a matter like this, the Attorney General wouldn't be handling it at this stage, for sure.
Congressman, do you have ongoing concerns about those who were deported to this maximum security prison in El Salvador called CCOT, about what their status is, what their legal access to due process ever will be?
Yeah, I think we have to stay focused on that. You've got judges who are saying they were deported without due process. Actually, it's not even really deporting. It just removed illegally from the United States. I think there's at least 50 in there in Venezuela who are not accused of committing any kind of civil or criminal offense in the United States, El Salvador, or Venezuela, and they were here legally in the United States. So they were sent out of here, put in a jail with an indefinite term. And they didn't. There's no reason to jail them from the standpoint of criminal or civil offenses. So that's not the American way. So they should be brought back. They should get their due process, and the court should make a decision about what should happen from there. But just sending people to incarceration, I think, is wrong.
And what recourse do you have as one member of Congress from Maryland in the minority party in the House of Representatives to make that happen?
Well, we keep supporting what the courts are doing. I think at this point, the courts have been very strong in, frankly, slapping down the Trump administration for disregarding the law, disregarding the constitutional components that require due process, and then being evasive in court and trying to do everything to slow walk their return. So supporting the judges, I think there were 7 articles of impeachment brought against some of these judges. We've got to stand against that. And I like the fact that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court basically said, look, if you got a dispute with a judge, you appeal it. You don't call for their removal or attack them personally and verbally, which is what the president has done. So I think we stand with the courts and make sure that due process is had here and that the Constitution is followed.
Congressman, let me ask you what you might regard as a crass political question. In the Democratic cloakroom, the conversation goes something like this. Look, we got to get off this. It's bad politics to be on behalf of Kilmar Abrego Garcia or anyone who's in that El Salvadoran prison. Just drop it.
Well, sometimes fighting for constitutional rights is bad politics. And, I don't know that that's the case here. Certainly for the Venezuelans, I think as more of them, of their stories come out, I think the stronger it'll be. But at the end of the day, it's wrong for the United States to be paying El Salvador to jail people who haven't done anything wrong and not had a day in court to defend themselves or get due process. We shouldn't stand for that. I think we're better than that. That's not the American way, and we have to make sure that their constitutional rights are defended and upheld.
Maryland Democratic Congressman Glenn Ivey, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you.